around, see if anyone wants to talk. So here we are. This is the 250 year of America's existence. And if you were going to look at our founding fathers and then look at us now and go, ooh, this ain't good. But the United States has gone up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down in a serious way for maybe 5 serious hiccups and maybe 10 minor hiccups. And we always seem to kind of balance out. So, Donnie, I keep saying this to you guys, and I have been saying it since 2015. 2015, before he came down that escalator, I said, they're going to find some chucklehead to be president after Obama, right? And basically, he is going to start to take a sledgehammer to the irrelevant guardrails of our bureaucratic state. And that is so that some other chucklehead can come down the line and do even worse things, right? So basically, I said, whoever it is in the Republic, it's going to be a Republican, and whoever has to run against whoever they pick to be the Republican has to be even worse than that moron. And I would say the person, and this is what I said in 2015, I said that person who would be probably the Republican will probably be Donald Trump. And the person who's going to be the person who has to lose to Donald Trump, the only person who could ever lose to Donald Trump that's a Democrat, is Hillary Clinton. And what do we get? So then we got Donnie for 4 years, and he did the worst of the worst of the worst, right? Pandemic cratered our economy worse than '08, right? And because '08 said a great little thing that they had, free money for a good 10 years, 2% interest, couldn't beat that stuff. Anyone who didn't buy stock and didn't, I had bought stock and property before '08, like from '03 to '06, right? Did pretty good. I liquidated everything, put it in safe bonds and metals, and then I started going back the other way, right? And I did pretty good with that. But by what happened to me was I died in 2014, and when I came out of it, I had to basically, let's see. Hi. So, okay, listen, you have to use, anybody who's going to send me a thing, put it in capital so I don't have my glasses so I can read it. Understand that you're talking to one right. And so you understand that you are talking to 10. Okay, whatever. Come on, put it in view message. This message is held in review. Okay. Whatever. So bottom line is all of this is scripted. We are in a basic, what do they call it? Soap opera. Yeah. And the neon husk and the red turd. If that ain't something straight out of TV, soap opera, two lovers then go at each other, then they're going to come back and Elon's just making, and see, Elon, he is no stable genius. He basically is just a cover boy for Mr. Tilk, right? And Mr. Tilk is just the, the handler of all these chuckleheads for the hidden hand. I mean, he doesn't even know who the hidden hand is. He's not even there. So this next you thought the last 6 months were wild and crazy? Oh, forget about it. I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, the Ukraine war makes no sense, except both the guys the Ukrainian guy, the Russian guy, they're both named Vlad. And they're going by a script, everything they're doing. I mean, Ukraine has 1/10 of the resources Russia does, and they've been fighting this war now going on 4 years, and Ukraine is getting the shit kicked out of them, but all that is innocent people are dying. The military is still, for everyone they lose, they're killing like 10 Russians, right? And really eating up their resources. So the bottom line is that Russia and Ukraine, the two most have a lot of resources, have a lot of it's the breadbasket of the world basically, and no matter what craziness of the weather is going to go on, they're still going to be able to produce food as long as they don't nuke each other and then totally cover everything with radiation. But hey, look, Chernobyl happened and we're eating bread made from Russia. So anyway, guys, so here it is, our 250 year, right? Next July 4th is going to be that big birthday. And well, Donnie's little army, birthday cake didn't do too good. The next one ain't going to be too good. I was actually very honored to be part of the 1776 Michael Moody Manhattan Theater Club. He got the contract to light up New York City. We lit up the bridges, the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, World Trade Centers, and we did it on a nickel. And doing that event really definitely put Michael on the map. And it also did, I was still in my early 20s, mid 20s. It did really good for me, and we got paid pretty good, and we had a lot of fun. I was basically on that 4th of July. I was on, I think, the Maddox or one of the first super duper computerized missile destroyers, the Burke class, the Archie Burke class, right? And I was down in the bowels of the thing, the CNC, command and control, and I was like, it was like Star Trek. I was in the captain's chair because, they didn't have to worry about anything, but they had to be there because Russia, you name it, China, everybody who wanted to blow us up, they had their military boats there, so they could have done something. But they didn't. Everybody was fine. And that just showed to me, I mean, I was in a couple of those meetings and everybody was there, if we were really scared of the Russians, when we had the Russians here, I mean, would they even let me in that room? That's when I started formulating my little theory that this is all a soap opera and that all these politicians are just game show hosts and that we're just slaves, and I've been watching George Carlin since I was like 6. He came from my neighborhood, and when I was 6, Malcolm X was still in New York. He still had his temple. He used to have every weekend. He had these great gatherings of food, and he would get up on a ladder with the American flag on the ladder, because if you do that, you can say whatever you want. And he would make these speeches that were like, whoa. And I was 6 going, whoa. And my grandma and I'd be like, there'd be like maybe 10,000 people there, and there'd be like 5 white people, forget about, if you take the police out of the equation. And he would come down that thing, and he knew my grandma. I'd say, Mrs. D. And then he'd pat me on the head and go, good white boy. Like I was a monkey, which I was, right? Anyway, here we are, 8 minutes and 41 seconds, and there's nobody here anymore. Ellie said hi. Anyway, so the last few shows have been pretty good, and they have been relatively well appreciated. And but I'm still wanting to, I still want to have a dialogue with you guys. That's what the show is really about, to have a conversation, Dark Journalist. You guys ever watch Dark Journalism? He does a very nice show on Friday nights. You go to YouTube, Dark Journalist. I don't know what time it starts. I usually see it, when I can see it. And he has somebody off to the side who is watching, looking at everything and reading all the stuff, but it's right on the side. You can read it yourself. And she picks out the best questions, and then every 5, 10, 15 minutes, he breaks his little stream and kind of, so what do you, what question you got there, girl? And she throws a nice, one that he can hit out of the park. So anyway, I would love it if you guys could put it together and at least have and then you guys don't even stick around. You stick around. If there's like at least four people, I'll start to get into a story. But otherwise, it's again, I'm my buddy's house a few miles away from me, and I still have to get home on the logging road. And man, I raked it a little bit today, but morons from all over the country, our roads are destroyed all around us, and they want to get from Johnson City to Boone. So freaking go on this highway and over there. Well, my smartphone says I should go this way. And then it says if I turn here, and they turn on a road that has potholes the size of a house. And then they drive through the woods, right? And yeah, that works if it's dry, but not this is a kind of rainforest. Anyway, so it's all fun and games until someone pokes an eye out, and but that's why I'm here. So I did a nice day today, and that's why I want to get back. If I get back in the next 20 minutes, I'll have a good hour and a half of finishing up what I started, because I left there at 3 or 4 o'clock. While the road was still somewhat in shade, but it was still hot. As soon as it got a little toasty around 4 o'clock, I came up here and looked at the internet. And, so Russia is ready to chew up Ukraine. And, Russia's already gone through 1 million men dead. And another more than that, wounded to the point that they're never going to have, they're not going to have a job that they can pay taxes. They're going to have to be taken care of. So, and their demographics weren't good to begin with. So the people who should have stayed alive to work in the factory and made money, they're not there anymore. And all the really smart ones have left. More than 500,000 Russians have left, the people who had something on the ball. So at some point, and this happens to Russia every time, the leader pushes it too far and the people can't take it. Now, in Russia, no one's hearing this, no one's seeing this, no one's advertising this, but there's a great deal of pissed off Russians in Russia. And they are, blowing up bridges, setting fires to this, that, and the other thing, and taking out the petty bureaucrats, right? And that's just, as things get worse. And if I was Ukraine, I would keep blowing up all of those warehouses and all those factories, because you got to, because they're just pummeling with, their drones and their missiles. And no one's given you any anti-aircraft anything for at least a year. You're doing pretty good. You're knocking about 80% of them down, but still it's killing you. But when I grew up in Harlem, and along 2nd Avenue, every 2 blocks was a different European white people. The Russians were pussies. The people you did not mess with were the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are going to fight this war till the last Ukrainian, pretty much. And that's, now it's understood that Russia isn't going to win, so everyone's going to come in and do more. I mean, Europe realizes if Russia were ever to take Ukraine, then they'd have to deal with Russia. But if Ukraine can, take out Russia, they won't have to do this. So they're going to start giving them the best of the best. And so is Vlad going to lob a few nukes in Europe and at Ukraine? Only if the hidden hand tells him to, because he's following a script. No one in their right mind would do what he's done, right? So he is nuts, but he's also following a script, because the people, how he got there, he was just a bagman. He was just a lowly colonel in the KGB in Berlin, not really. And when he called them up, they're coming over the fence. And the phone in Moscow was meaning no one picked up. Now, if I would start throwing whatever spare thing you have to shoot at Russia, Mr. Ukraine, I would start going after what's they call the headquarters, the Russian headquarters. What do they call that place? Right in the middle of Moscow. It's got all those ice cream cones and big fence around it. Kremlin. I would just, every night, if you could hit that thing, and in the very beginning, they blew off the Russian flag off the top ice cream cone of that group of buildings. So I would just pepper that place. Don't go after the people. Just go after that place. The big walled-in ice cream cones, right? Just keep going at it, right? And keep doing what you're doing. Because, Vlad put, this big crew of Russians to go after the Donetsk, and Ukraine took them out, took out their leadership, their head guy, and all of their guns and butter and everything. And so now, they got 100,000 plus guys right there, but now they're just targets. And they got no one to lead them, and they got no ammunition, no gas, no tanks, no nothing. So I would keep going after the big airports where the bombers are that are lobbing the glide bombs into Ukraine, and I would go after the ice cream cones. So that's if I was Mr. Ukraine, I would do that. See what they do. If they do that, that means they're not following the script as much. Anyway. And now if they do it with European weapons and they have American ones to protect them, then we know that Russia, and they want to turn Russia, no matter who wins, they want to turn Russia into Disneyland, right? So anyway, that's that. And now you go over into the Mideast. That is one shit show that's... And the people who are going to lose the most, first of all, it's the people that no one cares about. No, it's not. It's not the guys in the Strip. No, it's Israel. No one cares two hoots about them. Because all I have to do is go back to, the Versailles Treaty, right? Just go read what it said about Palestine, right? So you will understand why the poor Israeli folk have, just like go read your You Suck book, the Old Testament in King James, which is the Torah. And that word Torah, translated from the Greek, means you suck. I mean, if you read the King James Old Testament, pretty much the whole thing, God's constantly going, you suck, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then they let them get turned into Trump admits, realize he's live on air, panic. I mean, of course they put Chuckles in the presidency. He's a game show host, He was for 11, 12 years, he was in the show called The Apprentice. He was the apprentice for this job. He's going to screw things up so bad, America will not get out of the ditch. Ever. Again. Period. We're already a laughing stock. We already were the laughing stock. But who's coming up the road? How much are they destroying it? Not too bad. Oh, it's spinach. I mean, this kid was named Kale. Who names their kid Kale? So whenever I see him, I either call him spinach or broccoli. And he's kind of going, ugh. And I keep saying, listen, you need a handle. I have like 100,000 different names, I don't go by my slave name, So, I'm Sensie Owl Bob. I was the dude. I was the kid. I've had a whole bunch of them, right? When I was in Brazil, I was Rick. No, I was Dr. Rick. In Jamaica, in the grill, when I was working for Mrs. Brown, and I was building, what's the name of that club I built? What's it called? I don't remember it. But I thought of it as Casablanca, but it's not. What was it called? Anyway, I was Rick there. Mrs. Brown used to call me Rick. She goes, you're just like the movie Casablanca. Because all I had was these linen pants that that's all I wore, and they just kind of disintegrated. They became, at my knees and then at my crotch, and it was like it looked like I was wearing underpants, and I had a linen shirt. That was it. I had a linen hat. Rick's. That's what the place was called. I'm pretty sure it was Rick's. Maybe. Anyway, so anyway, but it's still there. Now they totally changed it because it was a doctor's house. This guy loved to grill. There's only 2 beaches in Jamaica: Ocho Rios, where the rich people are, the English, and this place where all the poor people, the Rasta guys, were up in red ground. And on either side of the 15-mile, 20-mile long, beautiful beach, were the mountains. And the mountains kind of came around and went back up all the way, because all those islands are pretty much volcanic, rocky, craggy things. Like, go to Tortola, it's like one big rock. They don't even have roads. They have 2 ports, and they have 2 roads going out of them that kind of go up the hill a bit. And then you get to walking paths or bicycle paths or dirt bike paths. But most people get around on a boat. There's like maybe 900 unbelievably beautiful beaches around Tortola. And the rich people just come. They come to that place. They pay a little money to the government to be able to go camp out on the beach. And a couple of those, maybe half the beaches are owned by somebody who have a little house there. They have their own boat, and they keep it stocked, and they have a little bit of electricity. And that's one thing I did there. Got generators and windjammers and photo cells. And that was like in the late 70s, early 80s. I was there. Anyway, so like I said, if more guys were here, I would tell you. I'm telling you a whole bunch of little stories. I could be big, long stories, but not going to tell you unless you guys are here. So, our economics, we've already toasted ourselves. And I don't know if all these guys that Donald's basically threatening with tariffs, the Chinese said, we don't give a crap. We're not going to have anything. That we're starting BRICS. We don't need you. We're not buying wheat from you. We're not buying anything from you. Screw you, right? You can get rid of the tariffs and go back to zero. We're not going back to that. We did it, done it. We got the T-shirt. We're moving on, kid. See you later. Bye. They've already said that. Japanese said, the Japanese are very, very xenophobic and also very, very proud, and also a little teeny country, I don't know how many million people, but, not a lot, maybe 60 million, but the little teeny islands. And, they nearly ate the world's lunch a number of times. And so they are number 2. When America was number 1, they were number 2. Then China was number 1, they are number 2, right? So they don't really have a big military, but they are like a screwdriver away from having ICBMs and nuclear weapons. They have more nuclear reactors than anybody. And they got them for the same reason we had them, and that was to make weapons-grade plutonium. And because if you have enough time and enough reactors, you don't need centrifuges. You need them a little bit, but not really. You can cook the isotope until it's weapons grade. And that's why we had nuclear power. And like I said, Japan has more reactors than the rest of the world put together, right? And they have pretty good little ones. And someone blew up those Fukushima things. They didn't just, oops, right? So anyway, Japan said, listen, America, you screw with us. We hold your debt. We have $1 trillion in bonds, and we've had them, and they're all up to maturity. We can drop them anytime we want. And if we drop $1 trillion worth of your debt on the open market, you're toast. And Donald's still calling them little squeaky people, so. And the same thing with the Koreans. They are like the Irish of the Orient. You don't screw with those people. And that's why they put Donnie in power, so he could just, toast America. And he's already done it, right? Has anyone read the beautiful, disgusting bill? All 1,100 pages? There's 1,000 that they say are in there, and there's another 100 that you should look at. basically is a law that now says if what the kids did on the lawns of their colleges, exercising free speech, now it's okay to go kill them, right? And the alligator jail, right? Basically, they just gave $97 billion to not ICE. They gave it to whatever that biggest non or for-profit jail company. I forget the name of it. They are going to run ICE. So they it's like they will have the authority of ICE, but they won't have the responsibility. Meaning they're a private corporation. They won't be able to get really sued or going after, or the courts can't say, oh, you can't do that. You're not, in our Constitution, it says, well, they can say, screw the Constitution. We're a corporation. So you didn't know that, did you? Right? Everything you say and do on this little platform here, the internet, is going straight into AI, and it's like, right? So right now, they're either going to hit me with a hellfire missile, would be fine, be like over. Or they're going to show up in a limousine and say, doctor, we have an offer for you. And I'll say, great, let's go to the hotel and have I need to take a shower. I want to sit, go get me a tailor. I want some Tony Lama boots. And I give me some dossiers of some really smart people, not the chuckleheads, right? So that's my two choices is that. And yes, I am not going to become transhuman. Now, you can zip me up to the starship that's hovering above me. And when that happens, when they take me down to atoms and then reassembling me into the frame buffer and then stick me out in the beam, they can turn me into 27-year-old Al, right? I mean, I don't know why they ever, never really publicized that one on the Star Trek Bible, because if you break everyone, if you're going to teleport them from here to there, and you're going to put them into a frame buffer, meaning turn them into X's and O's, you can change anything about the mud puppet. You can make it older, younger, smarter, or at least, it can add quicker than that. And you don't have to become transhuman. That's a stupid idea. Because if you want to live forever, you don't need to be put into a metal box, which is like a prison, right? That's all transhumanism is. Go watch the movie Zardos. That's a really good movie, I'm telling you. Go watch Zardos, Blade Runner, that 1950s version of that the English did of 1984. The three movies of Hunger Games, the TV series of Handmaid's Tale, and that'll give you a good idea where we're at and we're almost stepping into, right? And it doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. And if you really study the Bible of Star Trek, you have to realize that Gene Roddenberry was the job he had before he worked for Lucille Ball. That was Desilu. Those are people who produced, who owned Paramount. Those guys got Paramount. It was a failing movie thing, and they got it for a game of cards, and and Lucy was a smart girl, and Desi was a genius, and that's why they're a great team. And they, too bad they couldn't, as long as they were screwing like mad kids, they did great. But once that got boring, they got and then they put a lot of that kind of energy into the Empire, and they did great for another 10 years. But then they just kind of agreed to say, okay, they had a couple of kids, and for the thing of the kids and a few other things, Lucy basically got the money end because she was a great business person, and Desi got the creative end and because he was a genius. And they went on for another 10 years making movies, TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. And then they kind of retired. I mean, she kept making her show because she found it fun. And Desi just kind of, like I said, he kind of retired, went to someplace and was on the beach and young girls and all the rest. So, yo, come on, guys. You can do better than yo and fry, or what is that? I can't even read it. Again, put things in capital so I can read it. And maybe write a sentence or two. Uh, so anyway, this, you think, wow. And Iran, poor Israel's toast, really is, because they can't really do anything. I mean, right now, the Hamas is killing more IDF than they ever did for the other 22 months. They're really going after them now. Just, I don't know why again, everything is scripted. So Israel is probably lost in country, I mean, in the strip. They probably, in the last 4 months, they probably lost 100 guys. And they probably, maybe 4,000 have been really badly wounded to the point that they're not going to have a real life. They're missing legs, they're missing eyes, they're like shell-shocked, they're toast. Then you have to realize that maybe 120,000 IDF soldiers that have killed all those people and saw it as a video game, that has a serious weight on you, worse than losing an arm or an eye or ear or whatever. And Israel, if let's say they win and everything was fine, hunky-dory, they would have close to 250,000 people who are totally mind screwed and just want to kill. And that means killing. No, if they don't have the, people in the strip to kill, or up there in the, wherever, those are going to start killing people in Israel. Other Jews. I don't like it. Bang, or like, cut your head off, or rip your face off in front of, come into a classroom and just rip a face off of the teacher, and like the kids see that. So that's kind of what it is. But Iran has enough missiles to decimate. I mean, Israel is the size of New Jersey, has 3 million people. Iran is the size of California and Texas, and it has 90 million people. And their country, Israel, is just a sandbar, right? It's flat. It's got a river on one side, a sea on the other side, and they have nothing to hide under back, Iran is all mountains, and they have tunnels. They've had the last 40 years. It wasn't the only, the nuke thing wasn't the only thing they had tunnels for. So anyway, and the Iranians are very interesting people. Yeah, they're pissed at their government. They want to be more like the EU than what they are. But they don't like it when people, go after their country. So they will put that, their frustration with their government, they'll put it aside to go eat, kill everyone who attacks them. So if anyone attacks them, if Israel, and the only person who's going to attack them is Israel. And so look what Iran did for 12 days. It took out all of their, their Haifa. That's their economy. Those 2 oil refineries and their port was going to be, or was, their economic joint, right? To bring in and take out all this great technology they're making. Then they went after all those factories where great technology. Now, the smart people who worked in those things and invented all those apps and this and that, they already left. By the second week after October 7th, they were gone. Like close to 750,000 people are gone. And more than 2 million of the 3 million who are Israeli citizens who are there have passports for other countries, They can go back home real easy. And so right now, the only people, throwing missiles at Israel is the Houthis, because they're like, they're like the, the skunks that hang out in the woods here. They you can't control them. The So, and they keep hitting, with the Iron Dome, they still keep landing and blowing stuff up in the two major cities of Israel, right? They keep shooting at the airport. And Israel really only has one airport. Iran has 200 international airports because their country is so big. So, doesn't look good for Israel, I'll tell you that. So the only thing Israel can do is start lobbing nukes. They have 200 nukes. And if they start doing it, they're nuts right now. So they're not just going to blow up, because they're going to do exactly what happened to Iran a couple of weeks ago. Iran basically was surprised because Israel didn't attack Iran with aircraft coming from Israel, because they have radars, and they have enough anti-aircraft where they could have made it hard for Israel. When Israel came in with F-35s, they took out 3 of them, right? No, the first 3 waves that hit Iran came from drones that Israel had snuck in. Israel was really good at that kind of stuff. They had given, pagers and cell phones to all the people in Lebanon, and then set them all at the same time and killed about 2,000 people, but mortally wounded about 50,000 people, blew off arms and heads. And so the phone rings, someone takes the phone and puts it in their hand, looks at it, it blows up, they're in the supermarket. Yes, killed that guy, but it mortally wounded 50 people in a 20-foot radius of that cell phone. So that's kind of what Israel did with Iran. So they knew where those military leaders were, and they took those guys out. They took out a couple of military sites, and that was the first 3 waves. And so Iran shot a few more into, started out slow. And again, what they did was they kind of, what they did a few months ago, they sent in 300 over a 2-day period. They sent in 300 drones and missiles into Israel, right? And all they really did was they want to map out what Israel's Iron Dome radar and its ability of its computers to figure out where the missiles were, right? So when Iran, after the first night of a shooting, and they said, and then Israel started coming in with airplanes, and they started shooting them down, and Israel started going after the radar. That's when Iran sent in those, missiles that couldn't be shot down, right? And Iran, over those 12 nights, took out close to $25 billion worth of resource assets, things, like they took out the harbor, which is their major asset. They took out the oil refineries. So those things made $10 million a day, those refineries. And the rest of Haifa probably made another $20 million a day, right? Through what it did, right? The moving of this, that. Now it doesn't do nothing. And that was supposed to be the gem of the Abrahamic whoopee, where everyone was going to trade in and out of Haifa, because it is, extraordinarily well put, right? So no one's going to go there ever again, because Iran, in 12 nights, they showed that we only needed 12 nights, and we took out virtually every asset Israel had. Took out Mossad, took out their IDF, they took out air things, they took out a lot of their radar, they took out a lot of their infrastructure, they took out, Haifa and the oil refineries and everything in between. A lot of their, water. No one's talking about all the water that the distilling, facilities that were taken out, and that's where Israel is right now. And so they begged. And so the other thing was, Bibi convinced Donnie to go along and drop, the big mother of all bombs on the nuke supply that's under the mountain, right? With the B-2s, right? Anyway, so soon as they took off from, Ohio, and would fly, and they, half of them flew this way, and the other half, that's going to confuse the Iranians. And Iran got a hold of, the Defense Department and Donnie said, listen, buddy, we know you just launched those B-2s. And listen, we're not going to shoot them out of the sky, right? We're not going to touch them. We know that you sent them. And whatever you blow up, you blow up. That's fine. But if you go back home and don't send anything more, that's the end of it. We will have to show our resolve, and we will launch 12 missiles at your big, gigantic airbase at Qatar, but we won't hit it. We're just going to launch them to show that we could and we can, and because we did nothing, that's not good. It's not a good thing. So we're just going to 12, not even it'll land right by the fence, about football fields away from the fence, right? Won't go in, won't kill anybody, won't blow up any of your stuff, but it'll pretty much you try and shoot them down. Go ahead, right? But that's what we're going to do. You haven't bombed us yet. You could turn around and we won't shoot those things. And if you could turn around now, we won't go full Monty on Israel, right? So talk to Israel about this. Well, they did, well, we're going to blow them up. Well, what did Iran know? They knew that they were going to do this. I knew that, anybody who is watching. So what does Iran do? Weeks and weeks and weeks ago, they have, kind of, not all at once, but, enough to see that something's going on there. And they slipped something out in trucks, but we didn't see them do everything that we saw, like 20, 30 trucks, which is nothing, right? And I think that's why, it's only 20, 30 trucks. But I would say, from my opinion, is they moved all their centrifuges and all the centrifuges they could move, and they did move all of their highly refined materials, which will only take a few days to put into weapons grade. And they have the technology. Yeah, they killed a few of their scientists, but they have the technology to make nuclear weapons. Not a problem, right? Like a screwdriver away, right? So anyway, I'm sure all that stuff is put in lots of different places all over the place. And all their missiles are in all over the place in really deep, and the mother of all bombs, yeah, it shook things up in that facility, but it didn't wipe it out. And that's the other reasons why they're not letting the international nuclear folk in there, or anybody, because it's not they don't want you to see that it all got blown up. They don't want you to see that it really didn't get blown up. So with the biggest weapon of all times and the B-2, and so when the B-2 came in, it was illuminated. When you're going to shoot a missile at it, you lock onto it. You hear and lock the phasers on, right? So they had a lock on the B-2 the whole way in, the whole way out. They didn't launch anything at it, right? The next day they sent a 12, whang, all 12, same place. And the Americans tried to shoot them down with the Patriots, didn't touch a single one. But all 12 of them landed like football fields from the gate, showing that you screw with us again, these suckers, and it won't be 12, it'll be 1,200 of them, and it'll wipe that air base off the face of the frigging earth. Kill 20,000 Americans, and then we're going to go, within our ability to shoot something, we could kill 200,000 military people and take out 30 your Navy, 40% of your Air Force, 60% of your army and tanks. You want that? We'll do that. We're telling you right now. And there was a speech, that the Ayatollah said that you do this is what we're going to do. And we show we can do it. That's why we did it the way we did it. Because a lot of people, well, why didn't they just, take Israel to the knees? Because if they did, America would have gone in full Monty. They didn't want that. They want to negotiate. They were in the middle of negotiating a deal when America bombed them. That's not like good faith. Not a good idea. But that's why the hidden hand put Donald in power, because he's a total chucklehead. And so, he's got a real estate agent being his number one diplomat. He's got little Marco. Oh, and it's sad to see Marco because he really is little. So anytime he goes, like when he was at NATO, he looked like a kid. All these other guys are, all the Danes and Germans are like 6'2", and what's he, 5'3"? It's like And they fire half of the State Department. They fire all the important people in NOAA, and they take out all of our laboratories, the gem of what we are. All of those college research facilities, they took all the money out. They won't let the kids come in. I mean, the guys who started Google, they were foreigners. Everyone in America is a foreigner. Go watch the movie Gangs of New York. So that's where we're at, kids. But we don't have to, all you have to do is say, God, things are pretty messed up here. I say this prayer maybe 40 times a day because I get frustrated, because I can see things and God, please help me out here. Help me to do what you want me to do. I don't have a clue. I'm totally at a loss for this. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. All this things I used to be able to do because I was plugged into all the things I was plugged into. Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm kind of, but not really. Not even close. My dad, who's, he got out of the uniform and then wore a suit. And so there is, the Army guys are either active or inactive, but they're still in the military, right? And that was my dad. Me, I'm never in the military. When they finally said, well, maybe, and I talked to the people there and they said, Al, we don't really think we can trust you with a gun. They were right, so I didn't. I went and worked at the VA and helped guys who were like Lieutenant Dan. And I did a great job, and my commanding officer, we built a protocol that could have really helped millions of people. But they assassinated him and then let me go. It was quite interesting. They killed him. They ran him off the road on he was heading down to D.C. to tell the Congress exactly what we had done and ask for a little more money. And they ran him off the road, and then they put a bullet in his head and then set him on fire, right? And that was he was going down to go to a hearing on Monday. He went down on a Saturday, and he was going to be there Sunday and talk to some people. And they ran him off the road on Saturday night when no one on the road. And they just kind of ran him off the road, got out, put a bullet in his head, set the car on fire, dosed him with gasoline. And when I came back on Monday, that was the weekend. I didn't hear about it. I come to work on Monday, and, one of the upper echelons, not real, my boss was the head guy, the, bird colonel. And this major came in and said, Al, something really bad. The colonel's dead. I said, what? He had a accident on I-95 going to Washington. What? I mean, that guy's I've been in a car with him. He's the best driver there ever is. He goes, Al, you need to go down the basement to the morgue. His body's there. The mortician wants to see you. So I go down there. And there's the colonel. And he is fried like this, really crispy. But the backside of his head is gone, right? And there's a bullet right there of his crispy little head. And, the morgue guy who I knew pretty well, because I dealt with a lot of people who died and took them down there and was, got everyone to be respectful. Anyway, there's so many bodies went through that place. I read the police report. I read the report of the FBI, and I read the report of, the military guys, right? All said, car accident. Not with a bullet hole on the back of your head, right? And he said, their suits coming. I mean, they're here. They want you to see this. They're taking him, and he's into the burner he goes. I mean, he's already, he's already well toasted. He's going to dust. And you need to go up to, Major so-and-so, and there's somebody waiting for him. So I go up to Major so-and-so, and I kind of go into Major, and then there's this suit. And the suit's in a really nice suit, not like J.C. Penney or Sears, like an FBI guy or an NSA guy or a CIA guy. No, he's like got something tailored in, and his haircut probably was worth $1,000. Anyway, Major leaves, the suit is there, and he goes, Al, you've done a great service to your country, and we're going to let you go. And he slid this envelope to me, right? And I was supposed to be there 6 years. I was there about 2.5. And most of the time I was there, I was sent to all different kinds of places to be trained, and not just like the military training. I was sent to Putney, Vermont, to help this Japanese Shinto priest start a healing temple. Now, if you go online and look for alternative medicine in Putney, Vermont, you'll see like 20 different schools and all kinds of stuff. And there's one that's a real super herbal whoop-de-doo place. And so we just called it the Hambu, right? Which in Japanese means like the school or the place of peace. Or anyway, but it's only because that Japanese priest came and I was the first guy, right? I got there before Sensei got there. I took a bus up to Putney, and I went into the Putney co-op, and they had a restaurant upstairs. And, I was sitting there having a cup of coffee, and this guy, I was 23, maybe 22. And he said, did you just come from New York, from the VA? Do you know Colonel so-and-so? I said, yeah. He goes, well, I've been looking for you. My name's Dave. And I said, oh, Dave, good to meet you. He goes, get a couple sandwiches and some of those donuts. So I do. And he hands the lady a thermos. She fills it up with coffee. And I rode all night. It was like maybe 9 a.m., right? It was still breakfast time. So anyway, we drive out to this farm. That's about maybe 10, 15 miles out of Putney, up in the mountains, up into the dark woods, and that's what they call Vermont. So anyway, we're there. It's a beautiful little farm, nice little farmhouse, the big barn, little barn, a couple of sheds, and really nice garden, and a kind of pond with a little waterfall coming from the mountain into the pond, and the river going across the road and going that way. And a really nice little place, right? And so he goes, well, this is where I'm supposed to bring you. And this was Ethel Carter's farm, and her husband fought in World War II, and he met this Japanese man, and when he was like in the occupying army, and this guy saved his life because my husband was so messed up from the war, from Iwo Jima and all the islands that he took, and he survived. Everyone he knew was dead or fried or dead, and he just had hate in his heart, and he wanted to kill everything and this is what the IDF are right now, just like that lady's husband. Anyway, so she met Sensei, and Sensei was like a little kid, and everything was. He was in Nagasaki when it got nuked, right? So, and he survived. He didn't even get burned, right? Because a little kid, he was kind of fell under something and then was protected from the radiation. And then these guys in spacesuits came and kind of picked him up like a monkey and took him away and did experiments on him and found that this guy is totally not affected by a nuclear weapon that just dropped on top of him. So, he met a number of these Americans who were from Manhattan Project, and they were in uniforms, but they were like, PhD guys, and they were mostly doctors, right? And so they, what's his name? General, whatever his name, will return, that guy, who signed the unconditional surrender on the big boat. And that guy was smart. He said, okay, we're not going to treat the Japanese bad. They're honest people, honorable people. They lost this war. We're going to treat them just like their culture would treat us, right? If we went through their process. And we did all that stuff, And so that guy was part of the guys who kind of protected or looked after the scientists and doctor guys. And the little boy, that was the first Japanese guy that this lady's husband met, and he just wanted to kill all Japanese. He saw this little boy, and the little boy went and held his hand. And her husband, she said her husband, it was like born again. It was like he met little Jesus, little baby Jesus. He met, Anyway, I didn't meet the lady, but Dave told me the whole story, right? So anyway, we went through it. No, she had died. Maybe a year, maybe not quite 2 years, but no one had been in that place for a year. Yeah. And some people had thrown junk over in a corner over there, but not that no one had really messed the place up. But no one had been there, right? The nice garden that's everything was kind of overgrown. So anyway, he says, let's take a look around. So we do. And we go in the house, and the house is fine, doesn't smell like mold or anything. And pretty much somebody took all the furniture from the house and stacked it into the living room and left all the rooms pretty much empty, which was a good thing because it was easier to clean. And it was one of those farmhouses that got added. And so there was like almost a whole nother little house in the back that had like a beautiful, bedroom and a beautiful bathroom and a library. And really, it was really a lot nicer than all the rest of the house. But the house was in very New England kind of Vermont mountain farmhouse, right? So that's nice. And I'm looking around, what are we going to do? And I'm looking to see if there's a light bulb coming from the ceiling. There's no switch, no outlets. In the kitchen there is, and that bedroom in the back where the library was, there's a little room that was almost like a kitchen. It was like a larder, but it had a electric stove and a refrigerator and a sink and on the outside where the window was, there was a little shed that, when we went, that was like a bathroom, a real bathroom that was kind of hooked up to septic. I had a shower outside and a sink, one of those like concrete sinks that you could, clean your vegetables. Anyway, so, and the kitchen was really big. That was a separate thing that had been added on. And it was a big dining room too. And then there were stairs that went up, and there was 4 bedrooms in the newish part, and there was 2 that were like strange bedrooms upstairs. So anyway, there was like 6 bedrooms, right? And this apartment, master bedroom, blah, blah, blah. And so we look at that, and I go out, and I'm looking for, I don't see any lines coming in. I don't see any meter. So where's the electricity coming from? So anyway, we go down to the big barn, and that's a nice big barn. It was where big halos, 2 big halos, like as big as a house up there, right? Real high ceilings, big doors that you bring that in, and down below, one side had things for animals, the other side was kind of a shoppy thing. And it had 2 big doors at either end, which was obvious you could drive a piece of equipment in and drive it up the other way. And so that was kind of interesting. And then the other barn was again multi-use. One was again something to fit, park tractors, and it had kind of the roofs going over so you could keep the equipment out of the snow or rain, but it wasn't indoors. But they had big doors that you could, anyway. And on the other side, there were again more kind of stalls for animals. And then the smaller places, they had a milk house, and they had a larder, and they had like a place for goats. Like there was a big fenced-in area. And, you could easily have 20 goats in that place. Anyway, so we check it all out. And in that milk house, that was cinder block house. And that was pretty much, I don't want to say the newest of the new, but it was new, And there was a service coming in, big 200 amp panel. And then on the other side, there was another 100 amp panel for like the milking equipment. And then there was another big distribution panel, 200 amp circuit breakers, right? And there were 6 circuit breakers, and there was like, the big house and the big barn and the other barn. And so that was obviously all of those. I didn't really look. I didn't see, but obviously all those places had somewhere in them an electric service. So, okay, this works. So, I showed up with my little knapsack of clothes and camping gear and my little doctor's bag of electric tools and my other little doctor's bag of doctor stuff. And so, I took out a couple of my testers and started poking around and said, "Oh, look, this thing is actually live." And so I kind of say, where is the meter? Where is it coming from? So we, again, walk out to where the road is. We look at the power lines. We see a line coming in. We see it, a drop, and it goes over. And there's a, big 6x6, like, train stud there. And there's an outdoor panel, and there's no meter. That's interesting. And I go, take off the cover. Yeah, everything's live. And pretty much all the breakers are off, but this one breaker is kind of broken. And I put my little tester on the leads, and one of those leads is hot. I'm going to have to replace that breaker. So anyway, so here's where it's coming down. Here's where the distribution is out to all of that, and, the milk house and all that. And I look up I go back to the pole, and there's what is known as called it's like a transformer they put around the wire. So instead of like the kind of meter you're used to on your house, it has this thing that the current comes to it, and the power plant can figure out the utilization of the power, right? And then I see that the ground isn't attached. And that means the utility company can tell that thing's there, but it can't measure anything because it needs a ground to kind of have the loop go. So somebody was smart enough to just take the ground up. So I didn't do anything. I'm not touching anything. That I'm going to leave everything kind of the way it is, and I'm going to get it into what is known in electrical parlance as safe but inadequate. So, Dave and I go back, and we start, he goes, "Let's see if we can get the," he goes, "Can you turn the juice on?" I said, let's give that a shot. So I hit all those breakers. I hit that main thing. We go to the milk house, turn all the breakers on. Nothing blows up. I go around with my little testers, and all those buildings have sub panels of some sort or another, whether they're like plug fuses or knife switches or whatever, or circuit breakers. It had a mix and match. And in that new section where the nice master bedroom was, there was a panel there. So look at that. So I started turning things on, and there were a couple of hit the circuit breaker. There's a dead short someplace. Okay, put a little piece of tape on that one, not to do that. The other ones I keep turn on. There was two pole breakers, right? And so I hit one, and I didn't realize there was an electric stove in the kitchen until I started smelling something burning. And so I, turned that one off. And the other one seemed to be a pump, a well, because water started gurgling out of the bathroom sink in there, and it was muddy. And we went in the kitchen, it was gurgling. And so we waited, and then water got cleaner, and then it was pretty good. We took a glass out of the thing, tried it. I kind of scraped off the crud that was burning off the electric oven stove. And there was a nice pot, and we put water in it. And he went out in his truck and got some coffee. I don't know where he got. Anyway, so he had a bag of coffee. There was a percolator kind of thing we put on there. And we and you know what they call that in Australia? They call it a billabong. So we put the coffee in the billabong, put it on the thing, and made really strong coffee. And we ate the donuts that we got at the thing. And that was maybe an hour and 10 minutes from getting out of his car for the first time. We did all that, right? And that's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden we hear the tires roll up. We go out to the porch, and there's a cab coming up, and this guy gets out, tall guy wearing an orange robe. That was Sensei, right? And comes up, and he goes, are you Dave? And he's looking at me, and I'm a kid. And I said, no, that's Dave. And who you are? I said, I'm one of the people who's going to be your adept. And he was kind, ooh, you know what that is? I said, yes, Sensei, I do know what that is. And he goes, ooh, you know what a Sensei is? I said, yes, Sensei. And I didn't say anything more. And then he goes, how come you're an American? You're not saying anything. I said, Sensei, you are my Sensei? And I will only speak when you ask me a question or tell me to do something and I don't know what it is, and I will ask you a question. But that is my place. He goes, I like this kid. And so that was Sensei. That was the first day. And then we show him around, and I say, Sensei, this is where you're going to be. And he goes, ooh, this is nice. Why should I be here? Because you are Sensei. You are. No. And there's 6 other bedrooms. It's beautiful. I'm going to turn one of those haylofts into my place. It's summertime, so I'm going to go up there. Because there was a big, beautiful rug on one of them. It was obvious somebody knew that was a nice place to stay. And there was a bed up there, too, and a chair and a desk. And so I said, okay, that's where I'm going to be. And then we heard a car drive up, and we go. The 3 of us go out there, and this very, very cute, almost my height, maybe an inch shorter than. So she's like 5'11" or something, but not short, not tall, and very attractive, but not like sexy. I mean, she's very sexy, but she was wearing jeans and like a flannel shirt and a little jacket and a baseball cap, right? Had a big ponytail behind her head. And she had kind of strawberry blonde hair, meaning almost red, but more blonde. And big. I mean, went down to almost her butt. Big, like that big. Right? And wavy, right? And I would say if you let it go, it'd probably be curly. But anyway, she gets out, got blue eyes. And she comes up and she sees the 3 of us. Me, about her age. She was 4 years older than I was. And Dave is like, he's like somewhere between 60 and 70. And Sensei, which you could not tell how old he was. He was like the immortal. Totally bald head. He had, and his eyebrows. He had eyebrows. He had eyelashes, but they went with his face. Like mine kind of step out, but his, right. So anyway, and she walks up and she puts her hand, she does the martial arts thing when you greet your Sensei. I can't do it because I'm holding the phone. But anyway, she does that and bows and says, Sensei, I'm Judy. And I'm thinking of Judy, blue eyes, Joni Mitchell. Anyway, so I'm Al. We're us. This is, and I'm trying to be like that. And she's just kind of goes like this. And she knows the whole story, right? And I should have just shut up. But by me doing that and kind of being, not knowing what to say, but wanting to say because I kind of like her right off the bat. And that she goes, well, he's kind of cute and he likes me a lot, I can tell. So this is going to work out good. So we were just about to go on the tour. We had already shown Sensei where his bedroom was and his this is your library. This is your own little kitchen. So you can make food. I know about, Sensei's little cleanliness, and you have the best bathroom. There's another one, and then there's an outhouse, and there's this, and the shower place outside, and then we went on the tour, right? Went all around, and so when we got into the big barn and we saw, the hay lofts, and she went up those steps and saw the rug, and she goes, "Oh, this is where I'm going to live," where I was going to live, right? And I just kind of smiled. I didn't say anything like, no, I'm going to live there. I just kind of smiled and said, and so we went down and we had water, right? And Dave said, you know what? I'm going to go get the missus and the kids and we're going to bring back food. And Al, you try and see if we can get that refrigerator working and see if what else needs to be fixed and what it is. And so I said, sure. So it was Sensei, me, and Judy. And Judy, Sensei goes, so he has his own tea, right? I mean, he has his own everything. He has this really beautiful kind of, not luggage, but, back in the days when rich people would take ships, they had the big thing. He had one of those, not that big. He could carry it, a foot locker. And he opened it up and he took these things out and had little drawers. Anyway, so he had the same with tea and his tea strainer. And he goes, I'm going to show you how to make tea. And this is your first lesson, right? First thing you really have to know, you have to know two things: how to make tea and how to bathe. We were going, yes, Sensei. So, and that hour or so as he was teaching us how to make tea, it was amazing. Judy and I said the same thing at the same time all the time, right? Which was basically, yes, Sensei, right? And we'd say it together. And we went looking at it, yes, Sensei. And we were in sync. And he was just smiling. And so we had this tea, and then we started, so tell me about you, Judy, tell me about you. He doesn't say, oh, you're a man, you're the man. He said, Judy. And so she gives, I'm a registered nurse. I'm from Boston. I went to Brown University and I studied theology, and I have real interest in Zen Buddhism and Japanese culture. And Sensei, I've studied Japanese, but I look forward to you teaching me. Right. Anyway, so and I said, well, I'm kind of a chucklehead. I'm working. I'm here because of Colonel so-and-so, and I've always had a knack. Whatever I do, I have a knack for it. And I don't think I'm anything special, but I can do whatever needs to be done, and it's pretty much more from God than me. And I'm not really religious, but God, and that's when Sensei, yes, God shines His light on you, and He has things for you to do, and you always listen and you always do what He says. So you are a good boy. So there we were, the three. So we had tea. We went around and looked, and he said, well, can you come in and help me, sort out my space? And we said, of course, Sensei. Right. So I grabbed my little toolbox, my little tool bag. And I first, I had already figured that house out, where the circuit breaker panel was. I energized pretty much everything except those that exploded. And his section, which was where the panel was fine. Everything worked, right? And he had a light switch, and the outlets worked, and he actually had baseboard electric heat, and the room that was the bathroom. There was kind of another room that had electric hot water heater, and so I made sure everything worked and everything was right. And we went upstairs. We hadn't really gone upstairs, meaning me and Dave. I mean, we went up there, but it was dark, and it wasn't moldy. But so all I did was open up all the windows, and then we went down. We didn't spend any time there. And I had energized things. So one light was at the top of the step was on. I was looking for the switch, and I said, well, that's going to take some looking for. And I realized that there were no switches, and everything didn't even have pull chains. I had to screw things in with the plugs. And so there was no outlets upstairs. There was this one light bulb that was on. And I said, okay, I got that. And there was actually two other rooms that had light bulbs in them, no switch. And those lights were on. And they had furniture, and they had mostly rugs, chairs, and bed frames. No, there was one like bed spring, right? And it went to the big bed, like king size bed. So Judy and I took the frame. We took the nicest rug that was there. We took it outside. We beat it, all of its dustiness. We kind of, washed it, but not that it was wet. Let the sun hit it. And Sensei just kind of took a walk around the 100 acres or so, right? And took a look at that and he was looking at everything, where, how he was going to turn it into what he wanted to do, right? So by the time we kind of got that rug pretty nicely cleaned, and we found near the house kitchen, we found, the closet had canned food, and it had like Lysol soap and brushes and buckets and mops. And so, okay. So we kind of Lysoled everything and mopped everything and got all the dust and cobwebs off of everything in the house, and didn't really go upstairs, right? And so we got the nicest rug. We cleaned that. We put it in the sun, and we got that. We rolled it out, and it fit just beautifully there. And the other next nice smaller rug fit perfectly in his library room. Found a nice roll-up desk and one very nice comfy chair, two kind of rocker chair, well, a bunch of rocker chairs, but the two nice. So put the rug down. We got the big frame. We put it there. We put the springy part. There was no real mattress, and we went got everything working in there. I put the big comfy chair kind of over here, and it had one of those kind of bookshelves that you could put up. We did that there because that library thing had its own bookshelves, right? Didn't need to put any bookshelf, but we put the desk in there. It was obvious that rolly thing fit right there, and there was a nice kind of chair that went with the rolly up desk, and we put the really comfy thing because it was like a little fireplace, so we put it next to that, and then we kind of really scrubbed up the kitchen, found the pots and pans, got the water really working, got the hot water working, washed all the dishes and silverware and pots and pans and all of that. And I kind of got the refrigerator working in his little kitchen, but it really, it didn't blow up, and the compressor went, but you could tell that it probably needed Freon and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so just unplugged that and just left it there. And so we were all there. And so we were going to and we got a table for the kitchen with chairs, like 10 chairs. And at one end where the big fireplace is in the kitchen, again, we put one of those comfy chairs and two of those rocker guys right there. And we put a rug in front of the fireplace, right? Didn't do the whole kitchen, just half the kitchen, right? And so it covered where the fireplace was up to the middle and the big table. So if you were sitting on that table, you didn't have to wear shoes. You could like rub your little toes in the rug. And it was but all these things were like Persian rugs, or like knockoff Persian. That's kind of what it looked like. Anyway, so when Sensei came back, his place was totally cool. The living room that had the furniture, we had moved a bunch of stuff that was the funkiest upstairs, and the bed frames and all that kind of stuff were upstairs. But the funky stuff that was down in the living room, we moved upstairs. And the next nicest bed frame, which was also a king size, we took out and we took a big rug, and there was a big rug up there already, but we took another rug with us, and just in case I had to live in the other thing, but we took one frame up there, and they had a wagon that was obviously pulled by a horse, but we put stuff on it and it rolled very nicely. It just kind of, all that kind of stuff. So we took some furniture and the big thing, and we rolled it up there, and so then we went back to the kitchen, and we were just about to think about, well, what are we going to eat? Because all I had was the leftovers from breakfast, donuts, and the pot of coffee. And Sensei had some, nice little Japanese food is amazing. They have so he had all kinds of freeze-dried kind of stuff that you put in boiling water and made amazing soups, right? They really have that down. Anyway, so, that's all. Then Dave shows up with the missus and the kids. They were two grown-up people with like 6 kids, And so the son and his wife and the 6 grandkids, and 3 of those grandkids were kids that were like cut loose by their parents. So these people were taking care of them. And they were all great. It was a great crew, right? And they had they had a big truck. They had the truck that Dave drove me from the bus from Putney to that place and they had a tractor pulling a hay wagon that was just full of stuff, right? All kinds of stuff. And mattresses mostly, because he knew what that place had. So he knew that there were bed frames, and so they had stuff like that. And they had boxes of like linen and towels, and I mean all the stuff that makes a house, right? And they brought all that, and they brought a refrigerator, a really, not brand spanking new, but one that worked and fit right in that kitchen, right? Bang, and that plugged in, and there it went, right? So that was great. And they had a bunch of food. They stuck it in there. And there was a larder in the kind of old kitchen that was down, and you went downstairs, and it was, stone. And there was a little water gurgling through it, and had shelves. And they put a lot of, canned food went up the larder up in the big kitchen. And the stuff that was like vegetables that was wrapped, they put there. So anything that could over time, decompose, they put down there. Anyway, so, and we all basically, not just the ladies, we all went to the kitchen and started. Sensei looked at what we had, and he says, "I'm going to make something." And so he starts, working on something. And Mom, she is making. She has a big chunk of meat and vegetables, and the kids are like chopping everything up. And the other lady, she's a big baker, so she's fooling around with the electric stove. And Mom has got the boys out there finding where the woodshed is and bring in, here, obviously here is where right next to the fireplace is a big space, and it has a concrete floor. Obviously that's where you stack the wood up, and then right next to it is this wood burning kitchen stove, and next to it was a gas stove. It had no gas, and next to it was the electric stove, like 1960s, like a relatively, almost not quite new, but almost stove. And once we energized it, it worked great. So electric, so the ovens had 2 ovens, worked great, right? So top worked great. So she's baking stuff. Mom's making meat and vegetables, and Sensei over there is doing that, and the boys are kind of gathering wood, and Dave is with the boys gathering the woods, and the other 2 girls are helping Grandma, and there was 3 girls, 3 boys, and so 2 girls are helping Grandma do that, and the other girl who wants to be a baker is helping Dave's wife, or Dave's either, I guess that was his daughter-in-law. Her husband was Dave's son. Anyway, so that's the division work. And for the year almost I was here, that's how it went. And Judy went over to Sensei and was talking Japanese to Sensei and helping, and she understood what that dietary thing he was doing. So she was, right? So she was, so I was the first one Sensei met, right? And Judy was the second one. And then Dave shows up with the whole family, right? So, no, Dave was there when Sensei first showed up. So Sensei met Dave and me, and then we looked around, and then Judy showed up. So that's how. So, but I was number 1. She was number 2, only because I was the first one he met. She was the second one, right? But he used a Japanese term that she was like Dr. Spock. She's like the science officer, right? I'm like Scotty. So anyway, and she was a smart lady. And so, but she was so much fun, and she had so much spirit in her, and so young, and but she was smart cookie. Anyway, so that was us the first day. So if you guys want to know any more about Sensei and Putney, Vermont, I would suggest you go online, look at Putney, Vermont Alternative Healing. The whole place, that's all they do now. That's from Sensei. It's from what we did with his hambu, right? And I don't think the hambu is still there. I think the super duper alternative organic gardening healing center is what our place was. But I haven't done my homework. Haven't really, and I'd almost have to go up there. But every place I go back to, it's still there, but it's all super changed. Right? It's just like Asheville. I can't even go back to Asheville. It just makes me. It's so sad. So anyway, it looks like how much battery do I have? Will it tell me? No, it won't. But it's. I think it's almost about to die. So this is the time to go. Good time to go. So. Nobody said much. Nope, nobody put anything down. There's one person left talking. Come on, there should be more thumbs up for that. When I come back, and this won't go up till tomorrow. Then I have to make it public. But I want to see some thumbs up on this show. Right. So today is Monday. By Wednesday, there better be like 20 thumbs up. Let's get more subscribers. I got about 500 to 1,000 subscribers. They keep taking them away. They don't want me to get above 1,000. But anyway, and it doesn't matter to me, but it's time for a little more exposure to Sensie Owl Bob, right? For him. And don't believe a word I say. These are all stories for your educational and entertainment reasons. Nothing is true. Don't believe anything. Especially what I say. Gotcha? Gotcha. Love you. See you later.